Labour reached agreement with the federal government for a new national minimum wage pegged at 70,000 naira for the least paid worker. Organized Labour finalized agreement with unions NEC tomorrow. Political tension in Benin City after the death of a police officer following violence incident around the airport when Mr. Philip Shaibu and the APC governorship candidate returned to the city. Hello and welcome to Politics Today, reaching you live from our global headquarters here in the nation's commercial nerve center, Lagos. I'm Jeffrey Uzama. We're tracking a lot going on in the polity. Our job is to condense all of that on the program by 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. to give you a sense of what is happening so that you can make your decision as to what exactly the polity looks like and the pulse of it thereof. So let us tell you the first thing we're tracking. That is coming from the court, where the Court of Appeal sitting in Abuja has affirmed the re-election of Governor Diri of Bayelsa State as the duly elected governor of that state. In a unanimous decision by a three-man panel of justices, the appellate court dismissed an appeal that was brought before it by the All Progressives Congress, APC, and its governorship candidate, Mr. Timipre Silva. It held that the appeal was incompetent and constituted an abuse of court process. The appellate court dismissed the appeal for lacking in merit and upheld the judgment of the tribunal, which affirmed the election of Governor Diri and his deputy. The court also awarded a cost of 500,000 naira each in favor of each of the respondents. So that is as far as the issue of the Bayelsa State governorship election is concerned. But the bigger one that happened that encompasses every part of the country. The Minister of Information, Mohammed Idris, says the federal government and the leadership of the organized labor have agreed on 70,000 naira as a new minimum wage for Nigerian workers. The minister said the agreement was reached at a meeting between the President, Bola Tinubu, and the leaders of the Nigerian Labour Congress and the Trade Union Congress today in Abuja. The NLC President, Mr. Ajero, the TUC President as well, Festus Osifo, the Labour Minister, Nkiruka Nyejocha, and other officials from all sides have flanked the minister. Ajero confirmed that 70,000 naira was where they were on the issue of the minimum wage. He also said that part of the discussion was that the minimum wage will no longer wait till after 5 years to be reviewed. According to him, the agreement was that the minimum wage will now be reviewed every 3 years. Ajero said the organized labor would consult with other members on the 70,000 naira benchmark.
Last week we had a meeting here, and the organized private sector and the subnationals have also held their various meetings with Mr. President following the submission of the tripartite agreement to Mr. President. Labour came last week. They had meeting with Mr. President. They adjourned, asked for adjournment for a week to go and consult further. They did those consultations. They have come back today, and we have met with Mr. President. We're happy to announce today that both the federal government and the organized labor have agreed on an increase on the 62,000 naira minimum wage. The new national minimum wage that we expect Mr. President to submit to the National Assembly for legislation is 70,000 naira. But that is not all. There is also a boost, like Mr. President has assured, in ensuring that massive investment is going to be made in the area of infrastructure. There is also a deepening of the investment of the federal government in renewable energy. More money is going to go into the acquisition of more buses, the CNG buses. Nigeria is going to be more CNG compliant, according to the President. We are moving in this transition to renewable. And all other things that Mr. President has assured Labour, the issue of SANU and NASU is also going to be looked at.
Hey, you go kill us, Aya. Hey, you go kill us, Aya. Hey, you go kill us, Aya. How many people Obaseki go kill? This is lost where they go.
All right, so those are things that are playing out in Edo State at the moment. The impeached deputy governor that was reinstated by the court returning to the state, we understand when he returned, as well as with the APC governorship candidate in that state, Mondo Popular, an incident ensued that led to the loss of the life of a policeman. There were gunshots, and so they are pointing an accusing finger at the state government. So you can see Godwin Obasek, I beg your pardon, Philip Shaibo, as well as other party leaders, I guess, we understand, carrying the body on a procession across the streets of Benin City. So that is what played out today in Benin City, and it's going to be one of the major conversations we're going to be having today right here on the program. All right, so those are allegations that are leveled against the state government, but the state government will be here to respond to all of those allegations, because they are saying that it's the state government that sent dogs, but those are allegations. We can confirm that. But we'll have that conversation after we bring you your political roundup stories.
The Nigerian Senate has stepped down a bill for an act to establish the South-South Development Commission, which will be charged with the responsibility of receiving and managing funds from the Federation account allocation and other sources. The bill, sponsored by Senator Asupo Ekpenyong, representing Cross River South, failed to scale second reading after a voice vote where lawmakers unanimously declined to give backing to the bill. In a debate, lawmakers argued about the propriety of establishing multiple agencies, particularly against the backdrop of an existing commission in the Niger Delta. The Senate also quashed a bill by Senator Yisa Ashiru Oyelola, representing Kwara South, to establish the National Road Transport Council, which would have been saddled with the responsibility of regulating the road transport industry. The Social Democratic Party has condemned the removal of Senator Ali Ndume as the chief whip of the Senate. Addressing a news conference in Abuja, the national chairman of the party, Shehu Gabam, says Senator Ndume was only relaying the frustrations of Nigerians under the administration of President Bola Tinubu and described his removal as dictatorial.
The senators must know it is in their own overall interest to do justice to themselves, to their constituency. Most of them cannot go to their constituency today due to pressures. And that's why this local government autonomy will help them. They will have an oversight function to ensure that the utilization of funds in the local government are properly being used.
The Minister of Health, Professor Ali Pate, says corruption needs to be eliminated from Nigeria's primary health care in order for the nation to achieve universal health coverage. Professor Pate made the remark at a conference in Abuja organized by the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission in collaboration with the Ministry of Health. The minister also knows that corruption persists in the health sector due to bad systems that have for long been tolerated, and commended the commitment of the ICPC in reviewing systems aimed at fostering a transparent and accountable health sector that meets the needs of all Nigerians.
We as Nigerians have also very precious decisions. Let's begin to tone it down, try to channel, to have a better system that has more answerability and also consequence.
The governor of Imo State, Hoku Uzodimma, says a united Nigeria is all it takes to overcome some of the daunting challenges currently facing the country. Speaking during the 2024 public lecture of a pan-Yoruba social group, Yoruba Tennis Club in Lagos, Governor Uzodimma notes that there is a need to address some major issues such as good governance, unity and investment in education, while rekindling the flame of patriotism in the nation.
That more powers are not only devolved to the states, but more responsibilities, space and resources also, which will be enough to accommodate the yearnings of our people, particularly the teeming population of the youth.
The national president of the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria, ALGON, Aminu Maifata, has assured that local government chairmen will comply with the judgment of the Supreme Court. Addressing the press conference in Lafayette, the Nasarawa state capital, he also appreciated the federal government and added that all chairmen will repay the confidence of the masses by delivering dividends of democracy to the grassroots.
All right, welcome back. So let's give you a background. Barely yesterday, there was a court judgment in favor of Mr. Philip Shaibu that was impeached earlier this year as the deputy governor of Edo State. And we had that conversation just yesterday. We had on the two sides, the pro-Philip Shaibu and, of course, the pro-government side having to look at the legalese as far as that is concerned. But there were two judgments, actually. One had to do with Mr. Philip Shaibu, the deputy governor of Edo State, instituted two suits among the other suits. So the judgments were yesterday. One was the fact that he wanted the disqualification of Mr. Asue Godalo, the governorship candidate of the PDP in the September election. The court dismissed that particular suit against Mr. Shaibu, saying that, look, his status bar in the first place, and he couldn't prove it, so they dismissed it. It has to do with forgery of voter card. And so that was in the favor of Mr. Asue Godalo. But there was another one that has to do with Mr. Philip Shaibu challenging the House of Assembly, saying, I was unjustly removed as the deputy governor. And the court agreed with him and reinstated him and even said the IGP should immediately give him every security that is befitting of the office of a deputy governor, as well as other things that was reeled out in favor of him. But the state government has filed a stay of execution and also appealed that case. And so that is how things were as of yesterday. So today we understand that Mr. Philip Shaibu flew into Benin City, and in the same flight he was the APC governorship candidate, Mr. Monday Okpobolo. But something happened at the airport, and there was a shootout, and somebody died from the report we're getting. And so things have actually escalated in quick succession in the last 24 or less hours since that judgment. So what exactly is the true picture of what is going on in Edo State? How did things escalate to this point? We're being joined in the program by the SA media to the governor Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State, Mr. Crusoe Osage. He joins us via Zoom from Benin City. Mr. Osage, thank you so much for coming on the program. Mr. Osage, if you can unmute your mic so that we can hear, you can unmute your device so we can hear you. All right, I doubt if we can hear you clearly because I can't hear you clearly. All right. Okay, let's just try. Let me see whether I can get... I needed your first take on what just happened today because, as I said, things are escalating rather quickly. What exactly is the true picture of things? What played out? All right, Mr. Osage, if you can unmute yourself, maybe we can get to hear you. Oh, dear. Mr. Osage, can you hear me now? Okay, let's try and see whether we can get him reconnected. There is the SA media to the governor of Edo State, Godwin Obaseki. So the elections are just about a few months away. So this is already July. We have August, September. So barely less than 3 months, or about 3 months or so. They are going to be filing out to the polls to decide who succeeds Godwin Obaseki. So as it stands now, there are more than 15 candidates who are vying for that particular post. But for the APC, we have Monday Okpebolo, and we have Asue Godalo for the PDP, and the Labour Party has Olumide Akpata, and the other parties as well who have candidates. But there has been one form of issue or the other across political parties. But of prominence is the one with the PDP, internal issues within the PDP of Edo State. So we have what we call the legacy group, who you can say they are anti-Obaseki, who don't support the aspiration of Asue Godalo. That is the group that Mr. Philip Shaibu has now aligned himself with and even endorsing the candidate of the APC while still fighting for his seat on the table as far as this government is concerned. So there is a mesh of issues, which is why we're getting the views. So let's see whether we can get Mr. Crusoe Osage on this one. Mr. Osage, can you hear me now?
I can hear you very clearly. I can hear you very clearly.
Okay, absolutely. We were not able to establish that connection completely. Now we can hear you. I wanted you to give us a true picture of what happened today.
Yeah, I said everyone who knows Philip Shaibu, knows that he's a merchant of violence. If you remember in the year 2020, our Royal Majesty, Omonoba Nedo Ukwu Akpolokpolo Baiwai II, called out Philip Shaibu and warned him against his act of violence. Philip Shaibu believes that if there is anything to be taken, it should be taken by violence. And then if you remember, Wike also drew the attention of the Nigerian public to the disruptive and violent tendencies of Philip Shaibu, and that was in the year 2022. So Philip Shaibu gets a judgment in Abuja, and that judgment has been appealed. There is a stay of execution. The IG of police has been served with the stay of execution, and Philip just thinks that the way to come back to government house is to just come with thugs. He lands in Benin Airport, he's shooting up the place, he's shooting at people, destroying vehicles, scattering things, and then in the process, he cooks up a story and begins to sell it. You know, we have to grow beyond this point of madness in our politics in Nigeria. Philip Shaibu caused mayhem in Edo State today for no reason, under the pretext of a judgment which has since been appealed and for which we have.
All right, Mr. Sage, I wouldn't want you to be calling names, and you know, I don't want any form of character assassination.
We have to
no, hold on. Hold on, sir, please. I beg you. I'd like us to stay with the issues, all right? And I'd like you to discuss what you can substantiate. There was violence, people died, and all of that. But we will not accept
everything
calling
I have
names.
Said I can substantiate.
Yes, okay. So
everything I have
because you called him merchant of
substantiate.
violence, that's the one I'm speaking to. Please, let's refrain from such a session on the program. So I just want you to, because just hold on, sir.
I can provide evidence.
Just hold on. Because as you are bringing your evidence, I'm not speaking for Shaibu, I just want balance in the conversation. As you're saying, is the one behind the violence that ensued today. The video we played, I'm sure they're going to play that video at some point. They are saying that the thugs that attacked them were sent from the government, which is why we invited you. So, would we really listen?
The question you should ask them is why? Why would we send thugs after him? There is only one deputy governor in Edo State. He's Omobayo Godwin's Marvelous. That is the deputy governor. He got a judgment in Abuja. The judgment has been appealed. We have a stay of execution. Why would we want to throw our state into chaos? Philip is the only one who has something to benefit from a chaotic situation here. He's trying to make it look like the state is in chaos and there's a problem, so that, you know, he's the only one who can benefit from it. And that is why he orchestrated it. So if you look at it clearly, you see, if you look at the whole place, look at the motorcades you're seeing, you don't see any government person there. If you look at all the videos you have seen, you will see that it's all his thugs and all his people. There's no government agency there. So I believe the police is going to investigate this and come up with a thorough report. But I am just warning that it's not news to any of us. In 2020, in the full glare of the media, the Oba of Benin warned him. He said, I know that you are the violent one. Stop your violence. You can, Channels has that video. You can go back and refresh it. The Wike Oba, realize that as we speak today, he is a private citizen, governor. He doesn't even have immunity anymore. I'm calling on the police. I'm calling on the DSS. I'm calling on all security agencies to investigate Philip Shaibu and bring him to justice for this wanton, unnecessary violence, destruction, and which we can now see has led to the unfortunate loss of the life of an officer.
All right, so as at the time the judgment was in his favor before the stay of execution as well as the appeal. So let me be clear, and Nigerians want to know, was because the IGP was directed to immediately restore his security details. Has that been done? From what you know? I know you're not the police. Hello, Osage, Mr. Osage, can you hear me? Oh dear. All right, Mr. Osage, can you hear me? All right, we'll try and see whether we can reconnect with Mr. Crusoe Osage. He's the SA media to the Edo State governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki. And things have actually escalated pretty fast, literally changing the music to a war song, which is what nobody wants. It's just an election. But the level playing field is what everybody seeks. And there was violence today in Benin City. Everybody's throwing an accusing finger. The government camp is throwing an accusing finger at the Philip Shaibu camp. Philip Shaibu camp is accusing the government. But facts, somebody has died. An unnecessary death. So, which is why we are having this conversation 2 days in a row as far as the Edo State politics is concerned. So let's see whether we can reconnect with Mr. Osage on this one. Mr. Osage, if you can hear me. All right, we'll go on this quick break and see how we can establish this, and we'll continue the conversation. Join us again.
It is new, it is unique and of international standard. Maduka University. Maduka University, a modern university of international standard with modern facilities for learning, committed to training entrepreneurs across different fields of human endeavor, offers admission to students in different courses such as law, accounting, medical lab science,
cyber security, mechatronics,
mass communication, nursing, pharmacy, ICT, computer engineering, civil engineering, JUBE program, and a lot more. Maduka University is located in an environment of serenity, safety, and security at Ekwebe, Nsukka, Enugu State. For more inquiry, visit our website, madukauniversity.edu.ng, or call 0805-509-1802 or 0915-789-3107. Maduka University, the place for the transformation you seek.
The Duchess International Hospital caters to every aspect of the family's health needs. A one-stop shop for maternity and child health services, emergency medicine and critical care, medical and surgical subspecialties, dental and eye care, and a range of other subspecialties and services, all available at a single location right here in the heart of Ikeja. And it really doesn't matter if you're paying out of pocket using your HMO or private insurance. We focus completely on providing that world-class affordable healthcare for all the family at all times.
More nutritious meals, more veggies, but we want it tasty and easy too. Knorr Cubes, that's the secret. Made with real ingredients like chicken, parsley, and garlic, and enriched with iron, so your meals are better for you and more delicious too. That's the cocoa. Let's give it some accolades. Change your world by changing what's on your plate.
My name is Jamie. I'm a scholarship student of Philmont University. I was uncertain when I first arrived, but Philmont University welcomed me with open arms.
Hi, I'm Maya, a law student at Philmont University. From day one, the law program has challenged me. Professors here push us to think critically and argue persuasively.
The hands-on learning experience is amazing. Philmont is where I belong.
Philmont University, where your story begins.
See how sweet they like beans and rice. Edo people, I will never leave your side. I will never ever. I dedicate my time forever, time to you, my people. Even if the road be rough, I know mine. 'Cause together we shall stand. My people.
people, make we all come out on election day and vote Olumide Osaigbabo Akpata, una guy as governor of Edo State. He ready to change our story and bring better life for we and our pikin them. Vote Labour Party, the party for Papa, Mama and pikin. Make we vote well, oh. Oludi, confirm. Now you be our guy. Labour Party, forward ever.
Olumide Akpata.
Welcome back. We still have Crusoe Sage, SA Media to Edo State Governor. Mr. Godwin Obaseki joined us via Zoom. We've been talking about the violence that ensued today. For the records, we'll try to get the other side of the conversation, the other side of the argument, which is the Shaibu side. But we hope we can get them as the show progresses. But for now, we'll just have Mr. Osage joining us to speak for the government. Mr. Osage, so let's begin to see how we can wind down on this particular conversation. At the end of the day, these are political disagreements. Now, what do you see happening going forward? Because the atmosphere has suddenly become charged yet again.
Yeah, our request is for the police to move in. You know, Philip Shaibu is a private citizen. He cannot just come in and shoot up a city and be allowed to just go free. They should move in, investigate, and if he's found, which we believe is guilty, he should be brought to justice. Everybody must respect the rule of law. Yes, you got a judgment yesterday. That judgment has been stayed. That the stay of execution has been filed on the Inspector General of Police. All the documents that with you, Uzono, have sent them to channels television. The Inspector General of Police office, they signed on that document acknowledging that they have received it. What a normal law-abiding citizen will do in that circumstance is to write to the police and say, come and enforce this judgment for me. And then the police will write back to him and say, well, your judgment has been stayed by an order and there's a pending appeal. And then you go to appeal. And then when all appeals are heard and it's in your favor, you write back to the police and ask them to come and enforce your judgment. You don't come to the streets and start shooting up the city.
The investigation and other processes will decide who is guilty. You said you know he's guilty. You can't say that. It's the process, the investigators will find out that. But let's just dovetail into other issues around this particular one. At the core of this, at the end of the day, is that political disagreement between the Legacy Group and the Godwin Obaseki Group, which has dovetailed into, you know, this series of differences, altercation, and now even political violence. Is the governor doing, what is he doing to close ranks? Because there's an election in September. Everybody needs to be in the room at the end of the day.
To the best of my understanding, that disagreement with the Legacy Group is long concluded. The purveyor of that disagreement is the person of Chief Dan Osiobi. He has since been suspended from, you know, by the National Working Committee of the PDP, and we have moved on. You know, Philip Shaibu has declared his intention to support the APC candidate. We welcome it. Let him move on. He never won Isako anyway. The Isako, 3 Isako local governments, you know, are in the pockets of Adams Oshiomhole. So whether we have Philip Shaibu on our side or not, Adams Oshiomhole is going to beat him anyway. So we don't really need Philip in our camp to win the election. Whether Philip is on our side or not, Adams Oshiomhole will beat him in Isako West, Isako East, and Isako Central. Adams Oshiomhole will even beat him inside his bedroom. So why should we need him? We don't need him. We've counted our losses. We know that we don't do too well in those parts of the state. Do not Isako West, Isako East, Isako Central, because of the popularity of Adams Oshiomhole, who Philip Shaibu cannot contest against. So we have our strategy for Edo North. We have other parts of Edo North, Akoko Edo, Owan West, and Owan East. We count our losses in the Isako side, take what we can from Akoko Edo, Owan West, and Owan East. Where our candidate is the most preferred candidate across the state. In Edo Central, it's going to be a landslide in our favor. In Edo South, it's going to be a landslide in our favor. We are confident that we're going to win the election. We don't need Philip. We don't need him.
It's amazing to see politicians talk the way they do, because we can go back to when Philip was one of the game changers. But while everybody is
he was never a game changer. He never won his local government, never won his ward.
It's just interesting. No, I'm just saying it's just interesting how politics
evolve. And the same word with Adam Soshomole.
Okay.
He's from the same local government and the same word as Adam Soshomole.
Okay. One question I must ask you is the issue of level playing field. There has been complaint against the government from both the APC and at least the Labour Party. I remember I had a conversation with Olumide Akpata here on the program, and I remember he complaining, it was even on the social media, that there's no level playing field. There's billboards being destroyed and this and that or the other. Is the Edo State government under the leadership of Godwin Obaseki giving everyone a level playing field?
The issue of destruction of billboards cuts across all political parties. The most destroyed billboards belong to the PDP. You can investigate. You have correspondence in Benin. You can mandate them to do a story and investigate who owns the billboards that are most destroyed in Edo State. So it doesn't have anything to do with Edo State government. It's just irresponsible people in the political space destroying people's property. And we frown at it. We hate it. We don't want it to happen to any political party. We don't want it to happen to us. But unfortunately, it happens within our space here, and it's sad. So with respect to a level playing field, not the state government really does not have control over the field. The field belongs to the federal government. The police is controlled by the federal government. The DSS is controlled by the federal government. The military is controlled by the federal government. INEC is controlled by the federal government. Edo State government does not have the power to create a level playing field. It is the federal government that has it. So Edo State is just Edo State government and his party. We are also in the field asking for a level playing field. If you listen to the PDP governors who met in Enugu yesterday, they had to call on the presidency and they called on the federal government to kindly allow the people's choice emerge on 21st of September 2021 when the election is held. So just to put it back to you, this appeal you have made for a level playing field should be made to the federal government. We trust that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu knows better. We trust he's a matured president. He's somebody who was in political space for years and understands the issue. So we hope and we believe that he would create a level playing field.
All right, Mr. Sage, we're totally out of time. It's an ongoing conversation. We just needed to get your take. And we will say again, we tried to get the Philip Shaibu side. They did not show up. We hope they're going to show up someday to talk about this as well. Crusoe Sage, SA Media to Governor Obaseki. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much, Izana. Appreciate it.
All right, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll switch gears now. Remember, Labour now has a new minimum wage proposed by the federal government. That is where we are at the moment. Plus, other issues of national interest. Join us again.
Big tech wasn't really here. What have they seen in the past 10 years, which is making all of them want to put their HQ here?
If you're a business that sees itself going global, we'll definitely need some sort of like boosts. We need to tap into those existing networks that these big tech companies do provide.
Is there a downside to big investment in Africa? Okay. It's a tricky question.
We want to be like Amazon, we want to be like Google. Like, this is not, we are not looking to sort of be just another player.
For me, big tech is something highly controversial. I see the value of it, but I also see that Africans should stop playing second fiddle to some of these organizations and have the confidence to start building our own technology.
We've seen how we are using the limited resources we have to solve real problems. They've seen indigenous tech startups achieving things that took them years to figure out.
Welcome back. And of course, we've been joined in the program by a senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Alpha Osigwe, joins us from Abuja studio. Let's see how he weighs in on this particular issue. Mr. Osigwe, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for having me.
You know, one of the reasons why we got here in the Edo politics is issues of litigation, and litigation after litigation has gotten us to this particular point. So my natural question will be, what's your first impression of what's playing out in Edo State?
Well, I have not been up to speed with what happened in Edo State, but if I'm to speak generally, it is the resort of politicians to impeachment where there's a disagreement. That's why where a governor wants to remove a deputy governor. And oftentimes, the issue appears not to revolve around whether there's been a breach of constitutional provision by the deputy governor or the person in question, or there's any issue of gross misconduct by the person, or a strong arm use of impeachment to remove usually a deputy governor no longer wanted by the governor, and then the governor would appear to willingly go all out to remove such a person. Maybe that would appear to be what's happening in Edo. That's my impression of it, by the way, because I didn't really see any serious allegation, any serious malfeasance involved in that case, and that would appear to be what the court has considered in arriving at its decision, that there was no really serious issue of misconduct involved in the allegation against the deputy governor. But then that remains for the appellate courts to decide if indeed there's an appeal against that decision.
Yes, exactly. So, for the sake of the audience who may not be familiar with legalese, so it got a judgment yesterday. The state government has appealed that judgment and even filed for a stay of execution. So, what is what is the status of Philip Shaibu as we speak?
Well, if a court has ordered that a person be reinstated, depends on the nature of the relief. If they're declaratory, they can be stayed. But if there's something that the court has ordered to be done or not to be done, and a party files an appeal together with a motion for stay, the parties would stay action or not do anything to enforce that judgment pending the determination of the motion and or the appeal to the appellate courts. So stay of execution simply means do not give effect to this judgment. Court to restrain this other person from enforcing the benefits of the judgment until we have exhausted our appeal or until you have heard our motion. Then practically in law, the moment that motion is filed, even though it has not been heard, parties are expected not to take any step until that motion, which is now filed in court, is heard. So that appear to be the argument of the media assistant to the Edo State governor saying that, look, we have filed an appeal and filed a motion for stay. Nobody should take any step to enforce it. Police and other persons are requested not to take any step that would impugn that appeal to the Court of Appeal and the pending application for stay.
There's another question being on my mind I must get across to you, and it has to do with our electoral jurisprudence at the end of the day, which has been tested severally, and that has to do with conflicting court judgments. It's sometimes even from appellate court. I would like you to speak to it as well, because there was even an issue in Abuja where, on the same case, court of coordinate or concurrent jurisdiction within the same building, one upstairs, one downstairs, gave conflicting orders. And I remember recently the CJN had to summon a few judges to that effect, literally reprimanding them for what happened. So why is this such a practice in your view?
Well, so many factors and parties are involved. People who go to court to ask for orders in a matter they know is already pending in court, and the court in some cases may be misled into making an order which will be in direct conflict with an earlier order made by another court, and where a party suppresses facts without telling the court that the parties are already in court, or on a similar subject matter involving some or all the parties before another court, and the court has made an order. And so they go to the court and get an order. And then sometimes too, the courts themselves share in the blame, because some of these issues the courts ought to be circumspect, especially when the orders are being granted ex parte. I mean, in cases where the ex parte order would appear to be in a political dispute, and where the court should try to find out or hear from both parties what the real issues are before making an order. And then again, sometimes some of these orders when made are widely publicized. So you sometimes wonder whether the judge is making the conflicting orders, meaning the second order may not have heard or read about the order in which case the court ought to have asked the party to address it as to whether the same or the order the court is being invited to make will not be in conflict with an earlier order made by a same court of concurrent jurisdiction, and like he said, is in the same building. So I think that some of these things continue to happen because there are no consequences for bad behavior, either by the lawyers involved or by the judges who make such orders in circumstances that are questionable, or by the parties themselves who mislead the court into leading the court in such an embarrassing situation. So we must put in place real enforcement mechanism to ensure that neither lawyers, nor litigants, nor judges find themselves in such situation. And when a person makes such a mistake, which he or she ought to make, that there be disciplinary action meted against such a person to forestall this embarrassment to the judiciary, which does not augur well for anybody.
All right, Senior Advocate, I'm happy you mentioned, because we can't absolve lawyers and the members of the bar from this. I think I understand the election of the Nigerian Bar Association is coming. I think you're one of the contenders for that office of president. So it's important we speak to the issue of the bar. Do you think it's a bit of a recklessness on the side of the bar, knowing fully well that a court has given this particular order or a judgment and still forwards it to and go to another court to get maybe another judgment or something, forum shopping? And how is the bar going to resolve this so that it's embarrassing to our jurisprudence? Don't you think so?
So what usually happens is that people who are involved in this are usually smart. So if they are going to get an order that is in conflict with an earlier order, they change counsel. They bring in a lawyer who can always claim that he was not aware of the other matter, or that the other order made by an earlier court was not a counsel in it, and they use different parties. But everybody knows that the orders or the substance of the case relate to the same subject matter, and usually people work in tandem. No, let me get my own order, even though it be in conflict. Or where there's a clear case or established that the counsel knew or ought to know that an earlier order had been made and ought not to have misled the court into making such an order, disciplinary action ought to be taken. But unfortunately, disciplinary actions are a bit slow. And there's need to amend the Legal Practitioners Act and the rules, the rules governing the disciplinary process at the bar to bring it in sync with modern realities, to make it easier for appeals for disciplinary cases to be determined, and also make it easy for people to petition and have their matters heard. The current system where the matters are heard in Abuja, all disciplinary issues are heard in Abuja, and where the NBA does not play any role, has, in my opinion, weakened the disciplinary process and created a wrong perception that it is very difficult to discipline lawyers. This is an issue we ought to take seriously because it creates a bad image of the legal profession, and it creates an impression that people can get away with anything or do anything and nothing will happen to them. And I think all of us stakeholders should be worried about this and should take decisive action to see that this state of affairs does not continue. All right, Mr. Afamosigwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, I must thank you because we needed to bring you to bring this legal pass, because at the end of the day, everything emanated from the polling unit and then went to court, and then we're back to all of this. And I'm sure that given the fact that the NBA is having elections and you're running, some of these things will be part of the things some of you will address. I must thank you. Thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you, sir. Thank you so very much for having me. And I hope we'll be able to address some of these issues. Some will require amendment to our law. Some will require a change of attitude. But some will require collaborative efforts between the NBA, body of benchers, and the judiciary. But what we all have to work in our best interest to ensure that these things do not continue. And it's not for one man to do. All hands have to be on deck, and we must have to admit that they pose a serious threat to all of us. Thank you so very much for having me. All right, Mr. Osigwe, thank you so much. Okay, let's switch gears now to other issues. We needed that legal perspective because that's where it starts from. Minimum wage, 70,000 naira. That is a position right now. A meeting with between the federal government and organized labor. We're being joined by the NLC president, who was part of that meeting, Mr. Joe Ajero. Mr. Ajero, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Ajero, I remember it was me and you and I having a conversation one afternoon that you helped us to break down why labor was starting from 650,000 naira. You broke it down brilliantly. And everybody kind of agreed that this makes sense, even though it looked like a tall order. How did you move from 650 to 250 to 70,000 today?
Well, a great work. You know, a lot of input entered into it. in the first instance, the government team stepped from what they called living wage to minimum wage. And when they moved into the issue of minimum wage, it has been a running battle between all tiers of government that were supposed to equally participate in the process. While we were even negotiating, comments and fights from the states who say they can't even pay 60 was there. Comments from states that are still paying 18,000 has been there. Now, the issue of revenue in the last minute, of this discussion with the president equally came up, and accepting 70,000 was the best way to make sure that we save Nigerians from further hardship. At the last week meeting, the president brought a proposal. I will give you guys 250 if you allow me to equally increase the pump price of petroleum products. And we said, no, we need to go and consult. Today, we went there to tell him, no, the labor movement can make sacrifices without allowing Nigerians to suffer further on the increase on pump price of petroleum products. We equally looked at it that within 5 years, instead of dragging for 5 years, we are still going to have another negotiation before the end of the present administration, thereby negotiating 2 times within 5 years. And by that time, we need to equally move higher based on the situation of the moment. Now, there are equally other incentives, although those ones are promissory notes, but we need to follow them up that made us to anchor this on something. Now, in the history of negotiation, either here or elsewhere, for you to push beyond even 130% or more, has a lot to say. There are people, other stakeholders, the organized private sector, the SMEs, that are under pressure for us. The ease of doing business is another thing. The energy costs, all my foreign exchange, all manner of costs. Those businesses, we took them into consideration while waiting that we are going to review this, shorter than it ought to have been. So all these things came into consideration, and we needed to anchor this. We needed to raise this while going back. Those are the issues that came up today. And then if all the things we agreed for, are implemented, and those were the ones I call promissory note, you will discover that the 70,000 may have value. It's not usually the quantum. There was a time minimum wage was 125 naira, and it made sense. But if we are going to talk some other indices, if they are touching some other indices, it will make 70,000 a lot, give it a lot of meaning. So that is where we are, and that's why we've got where we are today, and we have to raise this thing on something.
So when is NEC meeting to ratify this so that payment, because I know government is in arrears, they had promised that whatever is agreed upon, whenever, payment starts in May.
Well, the issue, the minimum wage, last minimum wage expired by 18th April. So the arrears will cover from 18th April to the current date. So I think that's when arrears will be paid. And then they need to do the necessary things by taking it to the National Assembly for it to be enacted into law. And then we'll move on from there. That's where we are.
So some people were thinking that, okay, Labour is overreaching for 250. Government is just being miserly with 60,000. Now government has increased to 70,000. So what is the plan for closing that particular gap, which in your words, you said these are promissory notes. So if at the end of the day, because it looks like you're saying, President said 250,000, I can pay you that, not a problem, but I will increase pump price. And you said no. Okay, you now agree to 70,000 because there are other ancillary, not necessarily ancillary, other things that can be put in place to make 70,000 worthwhile. So When do you expect to see those things that will make 70,000 naira worthwhile for a least paid worker before maybe you start agitating yet again?
Well, my brother, we're all alive. Well, in fact, if you watch the issue of the concept of the least paid worker today, is that worker on level 1, step 1. We are going into further discussion on what is called consequential adjustment. In every ministry and parastatal today, the least worker, maybe the one with school start on level 4, step something. Now, by the time we go into a meticulous consequential adjustment, and by the time you finish all the salary grades on level 1, step 1 to level 2, step 1 to last grade, level 3, to, and get there, you will see that the least paid worker, in the real sense of it, is not getting 70,000 naira. So these are not the technical details I would like to come up with here. There's hardly anybody in any public service that is any level on level 1, step 1, which is where the 70,000 is. By the time you get there, ordinarily, if you handle the framework for the consequential adjustment, will actually situate where the least paid worker is standing.
So how do you think this is going to impact the economy at the end of the day? Inflation headline is about 33%, 40% for food inflation. And we usually have experienced the fact that whenever there's an increase in minimum wage of public workers, so does inflation go up. Are you concerned? Are you worried?
That inflation may have reached its elastic limit, because without an increase in minimum wage, the inflation is growing. What you are trying to do is to make sure that even with the level of inflation over the years, at least this person can still go to work, still get some work to do. That analysis that it is wage increase that creates a lot of inflation, doesn't hold much water. However, for where we are now, because people were saying, if you pay more than this, there will be inflation. From where we are now, there ought to be balance. But we have made it clear, that, look, the issue of CNG is a no-no. And that was why he was offering that they are coming in with how many CNG, they have brought so many. Now, if you have a CNG and you solve the problem of transportation, a lot will come down. Foodstuff, moving them from one place to the other will come down. Now, we have equally talked about price of food, and then all the incentives needed for it. If you address this, assuming you crash the price of bag of rice to 40 or 30,000, and is in the market, you crash that of transportation, drastically, and then you get probably some of the refineries working. 70,000 will be enough for a worker.
There's also the question that I've forgotten the commission that talked about it. I think it's in the works, which is why I'm asking you whether, when it comes to public servants or civil servants, we should start rethinking the model from just longevity guaranteeing a growth in career path to the issue of productivity. Is that something Labour is having as a conversation within themselves, talking more about productivity beyond anything else that can guarantee, promotions in terms of the civil service?
Well, I wouldn't know from the premise he's drawing it. But in every ministry, in every parastatal, in every agency, even the private sector, the issue of job evaluation and job analysis are attached to every office, every post, every rank. And now it's reviewed from time to time. If you watch at the end of the year, there's appraisal, for every work, and every worker and their performance. That is how to measure productivity, especially in the public service and private sector. Now, unless they have reduced their standard, ordinarily it is there, it's inbuilt. So for the person saying that, unless he's suspecting something, that the indices or the parameter for the measurement of productivity has changed. And then we are willing. The National Productivity Center and other agencies of government are there who can restructure it and see where it goes.
Some are even talking about, maybe talking about like we do in the West, like they do in the West rather, the issue of paying wages per hour. Is that something that we should contemplate someday within the worker space in Nigeria? Before I just ask my last question, we're totally out of time.
Sometimes it may be fashionable. We've tried to push it here. You know, you can't even situate it here in terms of naira. You know, maybe sometime as we negotiate moving forward, it may be reasonable. It will favor us. It will give us more impetus for workers in Nigeria. It's where to go, you know. But you can see that it has been war all this while, negotiating even the little we got.
Thank you so much. But before I let you go, Ms. Ajero, so the labor organs are going to meet, or the different sectors are going to meet, and so when are we getting a final word from the organized labor?
Well, even by 10-11 tomorrow, the NSC National Executive Council will meet, and this is taking into consideration that all states are involved. And the fact that when we agree on a minimum wage, it applies for them. And we're going to look at the templates, look at the states that can start immediately, the ones that need some push for them to start. Look at the state of it now, and then we'll have a final nod.
All right.
You know, so that's the situation.
All right, the reason I asked that question, at the end of the day, there are people that are still struggling to pay 30,000 and now 70,000 naira. So is there anything Labour is going to do to that effect?
Well, there's even no time. Even when it was 30,000, people were still saying they can't pay. When it was 7,500, many states say they can't pay. It was 18,000.
All right.
They still say they can't pay.
All right.
You know, so that's where we are now. It takes process of enforcement and implementation.
All right, Mr. Joe Ajero, NLC President, thank you so much for stopping by to give us an update of that meeting between you and the President. Thank you. And that's it on the program. Thanks for your time and company. I'm Jeffrey Uzonga. Good night.
Did you know you can access electoral information with just a click? Introducing Nigeria Elections, an inclusive artificial intelligence platform that guides citizens on Nigeria's electoral and civic landscape. Say bye to misinformation and disinformation. Visit www.nigeriaelections.ng today. Nigeria Elections, addressing democratic questions.